All right, this past year in 2025, I listened to over 280 albums, and I was able to keep up with it by looking at my recents page on Spotify, and I would write them down as I would listen to them over that entire year last year. So I was documenting what I listened to just to show the kind of variety of music that I'm listening to, even though I'm playing certain particular genres, and why I chose to listen to these albums and the influence behind it too. So let's get into it. Above here, these are like practice notes from a couple months prior. Sometimes I write what I practice. I really actually need to make more of a habit of doing that. So as you can see, this was back in May 2024, and I hadn't written in this particular notebook until the 1st of 2025. So starting with New Year's Day, Big Something is a local band here from North Carolina, and I had the pleasure of getting to see them a couple nights before that when they had like a 4-day residency at uh, the Lincoln Theater in Raleigh. I went to go check them out, and I was blown away. What a great show! And I listened. I think this was their most recent album they put out, Headspace, and I listened to that, and I just thought it was great. It was great. It was a good way to start the new year out. And so moving on to the 2nd of January of last year, Paul Gilbert, Bad Company. So I think I had a gig with a band I was playing with called Straight Wire a couple days into the new year. So I was listening to a lot of the stuff that we play. And we do a Paul Gilbert song called Down to Mexico. So I was listening to the whole Paul Gilbert album. We also do Shooting Star by Bad Company. So I just wanted to check out that iconic record. And we also play Leonard Skinner. So I was, checking out more Skinner. Pat Travers, someone that the drummer of Straight Wire put me onto. Really Bad Cat. And so after that was done, our gig at the beginning of the year, I started going back to jazz because I wanted to go check out some sessions in the Triangle area that I've been hearing about in North Carolina, some jam sessions. So, just wanted to start the year out by listening to Art Blakey, one of my favorite artists. And then I joined a duo too, an acoustic duo. Right now, we're not the Bear Combs duo. There's a couple of videos on my YouTube page of us playing, but we're not playing together anymore. We had a falling out, unfortunately. But when I was preparing for, learning the music for us, uh, I was, a couple Chris Stapleton songs, Edwin McCain songs, Tonic, Jamie Johnson, all those songs we were doing. So I listened to the respective albums of each of them. Some of them recent, some of them their most popular albums. So trying to give myself a variety here and listening to big name artists and their full albums. Moving on. And then I started, actually, I listened to a bunch of Hootie in that December prior to, in December 2024. I pretty much listened to all the Hootie records just to kind of get a feel of country pop and why Darius Rucker is a multimillionaire. So just listening to big name artists because of their influence. So this is what I was talking about here on the 9th. I didn't listen to, it says nothing new. I was just listening to the playlist I made of all the songs that we were covering. So not one specific album, but it was still a music filled day, but just not specific which album, but various albums. The next day, Billy Currington, uh, listened to two of his albums, and I like him now as a result from discovering him from working with Bear. Foghat, Fool for the City. Uh, I like Foghat. There is a song in Guitar Hero used to play, I think, Slow Ride, and I just wanted to check out that whole album. Some more Rep on the 13th. We were also doing some Prairie League with Bear, so I was checking out. There's three albums I listened to that day. Looks like that was a Prairie League day on the 14th, and another Chris Stapleton album. Um, So I was getting ready to go to Chicago at the end of this month, and our vocalist made a playlist of tunes that she knows how to sing. And you know what? I'll be honest. I should have checked this playlist out a little further than I did. I wish I had listened to more of it. As you can see, there's a gap between the 18th and the 27th. That's about the time I was in Chicago and traveling. So Moonchild, the piano player from the gig in Chicago, recommended I checking. Oh yeah, because I was driving home from Ohio, to halfway point from Chicago to North Carolina. So I checked out a couple of Moonchild albums, and it's more of like a kind of new jazz sound, and I enjoyed it, and it was a good ride home. And I also, after I listened to a couple of those albums, I listened to some Toby Keith because I was feeling some country. This was a big country year for me. I started hanging out at this place in town called the Buck, where they have a lot of country music, and I just wanted to, check it out and see what the country scene's about. So this year for me was actually a really big country year, and there's more of that. And Billie Holiday, of course, a couple of Billie Holidays. So I went from this kind of a like this hip hop jazz kind, not hip hop jazz, but more modern jazz, to Toby Keith, to Billie Holiday, and this was a long ride home. So as you can see, I listened to almost 10 albums that night. A couple days later, as you can see, I was getting ready for a jazz show in town at the Emerge Art Gallery for the African American Music Trails, and we had a show on that Valentine's Day that day. So we were doing a bunch of R&B songs. So I was listening to Music Soul Child, and we're also doing a couple gospel covers of God's Property, the Kirk Franklin project. So that was something definitely out of my element, I feel like, and so it's a good challenge to listen to music that you're not familiar with or you didn't grow up with. So that kind of gives you more of a scope on all the other kind of genres of music. So after the gig on February 14th, looks like I didn't listen to new albums, but I was listening to music every day. I've been, working on other singles too, but wanted to listen to some Weezer just to check that out. And Spiral Architect. So this is an artist that a high school teacher of mine put me onto. It's crazy prog metal from the, I think, like late 90s, early 2000s. It's unfortunate that, they only put one album out there. I think this album's actually very Skeptics Universe. I think they just put it on Spotify, and I had never listened to the whole thing. I like a couple songs off the album for sure. It's a crazy technical album, but highly recommend that one. And I was really happy to see that it was put on Spotify finally. All right, moving on. So, Forbidden, Twisted into Four. I think that's like, some of these I don't remember, to be honest. And it's like mid-January right now as I am making this video. So, I Twisted into, I want to say this is like also kind of a older, I want to say it's like 80s metal maybe. Something related to Skeptics Universe by Spiral Architect, but not quite as technical. So I just listened to that. Some of these I don't really, it's been almost a year since I listened to this music. Tribal Seeds, The Harvest. I listened to Tribal Seeds a little bit in high school, and I just wanted to kind of get, listening to the whole album gives you more of a better scope of what the band's about, and listening to multiple albums too. Like I was trying to get through discographies. Load by Metallica. I used to listen to that album when I was in middle school, and I wanted to revisit it, so I did. Yep. And so it looks like these 2 days right here on the 5th and 6th of March, I was just listening to a playlist that was like a generated playlist on Spotify. Maybe someone else made it, but just to listen to a bunch of country hits that, everyone knows and loves, just to kind of get myself more familiar with those country songs, because I was interested in playing with some of these musicians that I was checking out in town. so I wanted to learn the songs that they're doing. And so Gretchen Wilson, this actually, I really like Gretchen Wilson because the band I play in, Spare Change, we do a Gretchen Wilson song called Redneck Woman. I think that's off that album. So I listened to the whole album. So this is kind of where I started going through the Spare Change playlist after all those other gigs in earlier on in the year, because I was playing full time with Spare Change, and I still am. And so what I wanted to do was listen to most of these albums from the singles that we do. So, we do a Gretchen Wilson song. Okay, let me just check out her whole album then. Zach Top, Cold Beer and Country Music. I think that's the album with that one hit song of his, I Never Lie. And I really like that song. And it's just like a song I discovered from going out to listen to people play at the Buck. And notably, Jake Sutton, he's a friend of mine now from having met him and talking to him. So he plays this song, and that got me into that. Dream Theater came out with a new album with Mike Portnoy, and everyone was pumped for that. I think I was a little late. I think they released that earlier in the year, but I ended up listening to it a couple weeks after release. The Parasomnia album, I was really impressed with that, and I thought that they really nailed it, getting that classic Dream Theater sound. Again, more country music. Lee Greenwood, the American Patriot album. This was one of my favorite records. A lot of these records I really enjoyed. Um, the one with God Bless the USA. Love that song. I think there's a band here around Eastern North Carolina called the Embers, and I remember seeing them play that summer. And I was like one of the first times I actually heard that song, and I really do love that song. God Bless the USA, and just to listen to some American um, songs that he covered, some classic American songs. The Sword, Age of Winter. I think this is the album with Freya on it from Guitar Hero. Just so really random, yeah. Going from Dream Theater, so like country, prog metal country, and it's just like prog thrash metal right here, or just yeah, Sword, the Commodores. So again, listening to Spare Change. We do Brick House, so I just listened to the whole album. Ocean Size Frames. So Ocean Size is a band that I listened to in high school, and I just wanted to get the whole scope of the album that I never listened to all the way through. And what a great album! It has a couple of my favorite songs on there. Okay, here's a lot of country. So a lot of Keith Urban. He turned out to be one of my most top listened to artists of my year in my Spotify Wrapped. And I can see why, because over the course of a couple of days, I listened to, looks like from the 20th through the 23rd, I listened to Keith Urban. I guess I threw on some Boys to Men too, and Miles Davis. I listened to some Miles Davis as well. Um, I was listening, so I've decided to start listening to Miles Davis specifically when I work out. That's like my workout music now, because he has like an endless discography. It feels like, so there's plenty of stuff to sift through when you're talking about Miles Davis. So that's my workout music now, because I read when I was in college studying jazz. I read I didn't read the whole book, but I started reading Ron Carter's book called Finding the Right Notes, and in the book, I really should finish that book. Sometimes I just don't finish books, nonfiction books specifically. But I should. Ron Carter's still alive, and I should finish it, because he did a lot for the jazz bass whole industry. And I've actually met him before, and he's a really sweet man. And he's hard, but he's really compassionate and loves people. So he said that Miles Davis was always toned. So after reading that, as a musician, if you're playing for hundreds, thousands of people every year, you have to kind of present yourself in a way, and to me, and so that's why I started working out more and being aware of my, appearance. and feeling good about myself too. So Miles Davis is my workout music now. I mean, I work out to other music too, but Miles Davis I can just throw on. And I'll listen to it too without working out. I'm just saying. Anyway, so after all the Keith Urban's albums that I listened to, had to check out Christian McBride. I think they just put out the Triology 3 album earlier that year, as well as listening to Joshua Redman. A couple, The Cost. I don't remember this album right here, The Cost, the band The Cost, or Affection, or if it's called The Cost or The Lost. I don't know. I can't tell them. I see some of these I don't remember listening to. I just sometimes and it's been over almost a year. Listening to more jazz, yeah, the magnificent Thad Jones. Have to, listen to Thad Jones. He's one of the best jazz musicians, jazz arrangers of all time. Mastodon, Crack the Sky. I never listened to that album all the way through when it came out when I was younger, so I just wanted to check it out. Some Mastodon. So going from Joshua Redman, Thad Jones to Mastodon, I just think my taste in music is just interesting. Just looking at all the music that I listen to. Moving on, and then after I think on the same day I listened to Children of Bodom, another album or a single that I would used to. Yeah, I think the Blood Drunk album. That was crazy. Children of Bodom is just wild. Some Symphony X, Paradise Lost, another album I discovered from a high school professor of mine, and Gojira, The Way of All Flesh. I think there was like a song trending, kind of went viral about the mixed meter, and the intro, one of their songs. I think it's actually the song "The Way of All Flesh," and just wanted to listen to that album. And yeah, it looks like I was getting into a little more. So now it's looking like I started listening to some more metal music at this time. Just I think we have to listen to music that we do like, on top of learning music that we're learning for ensemble. So trying to have a little bit of balance, just listening to some music that I've never listened to before. I never listened to Slipknot growing up too much, so I just wanted to check them out and see what they're about. I think I've listened to all their albums. More country starting in April with Toby Keith. Looks like I listened to three of his albums that day. And this album, Historia de la Cumbia en el Siglo, it's something. I was playing with Litbone Redding, and we had a gig later this month in April, and he told me to check this out as far as getting the feel for some of the music that he does is very worldly. It's like world music because he's traveled the world and written music in different areas of the world for different people. So just wanted to kind of broaden my horizons of some music that I normally wouldn't check out or not be aware of. But that's definitely something that someone recommended to me. More jazz, talking about Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. Just wanted to get a scope of some Louis Armstrong. And then going back to Slipknot, going from Louis Armstrong to Slipknot, and the Volume 3 album. I really liked the Slipknot stuff that I listened to. Paquito de Rivera, a artist that I would listen, was, I think I had to learn a song of his when I was in college. I think it was called How Many in Your Party Please. It's a great song, so I listened to the whole album, which that is off of. And some Stone Sour because I was listening to Slipknot, Corey Taylor. I remember I liked that one song off this album. That hit single off the album. It's pretty much their biggest song. And okay, moving on. So more country after listening to Stone Sour. Tracy Byrd. I got into him because the band leader in Spare Change really likes Tracy Byrd. So I was like, okay, if I'm playing with this guy and I want to check out what this guy's been checking out. So Tracy Byrd was also another one of my top listened artists this year of 2025. Going back to Slipknot and another album that Litbone recommended to me. And then going back to Slipknot the next day. It looks like I listened to about 2 albums, and then back to Tracy Byrd, another couple albums of Tracy Byrd, and then going to Tim McGraw. Yep. All right, moving on. Yep, of course. And then my Rolling Stones knowledge is not that great, so had to check out some Rolling Stones. I think that was one of their first albums, if not their first one. I try to listen to the very first album of some of these really big name artists, and it's a lot to listen to the entire discography, but that's definitely in the works of most of these big artists. George Jones, super hits. Talking about country, some old country. I was just trying to see what the old country's about. Slaughter to Prevail. That sounds like some of these albums. Like I said, I don't remember. Made in Russia. I'm pretty sure that was a metal album. It has like the triggers on the drums, like just some crazy metal. Arc, another band that a high school professor recommended to me. Burn the Sun. Goose. Okay, this is interesting right here. So I used to go to a camp, a summer camp, actually in high school, and one of the counselors there was in a band called. This isn't. There's like two bands called Goose. This isn't like the popular band called Goose. This is actually, it's more of like a local band from the Little Rock area in Arkansas, and they're on Spotify. But this album, Bad Idea, is not on Spotify. And I found my iPod Nano from middle school, and this was on there. And that's the only way I can listen to the album is if the iPod decides to work when it's charged. It's so old, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't turn on right, or the screen, but it will sometimes. And when I was able to get the screen working and look at all the music I would listen to, I re-listened to this album, and this is one of my favorite albums of all time. I gotta find a way to actually get this album onto my phone or something. I don't know if Dunk Your Trunk is also Goose. I think it could be. It's probably the same artist, and that might be on the Spotify that they have. B52 talking about Spare Change again. Cosmic Thing. They're one of. I think that's like their most popular album with Love Shack. So we do that song in Spare Change. We also do Hey Now You're an All Star by Smash Mouth. So had to listen to Astro Lounge. We also do some ABBA, and so we do Dancing Queen. So I think I listened to some ABBA. Looking Glass, we do the song Brandy. I think that's their most popular song. So wanted to listen to that album because Brandy is a song that I have trouble with as far as like backup harmonies. And it's a kind of complicated song too. So I wanted to give it some attention. And again, I think this was a repeat of Commodores. I think I listened to the Commodores again just to kind of get that Brick House bass line a little more in stone. We do Stacy's Mom, the Bowling for Soup cover, and so I listened to the Bowling for Soup Hangover album. Oak Ridge Boys. Okay, this was cool just because some of the music that Spare Change will play before while people are settling in. They'll have like background music. You'll hear Elvira. So I just think that's such a nice song. And so I listened to some Oak Ridge Boys. And then going from Oak Ridge Boys to Korn. And looks like I listened to Korn those couple days right here. I listened to Korn in middle school. So I wanted to kind of revisit a couple of those albums, like the self-titled albums, like one of my favorite ones. Also, yeah, I used to listen to both of those, and yeah. So Sonny Miles is a local artist from the Triangle area in North Carolina, and my friend Joel plays guitar with him. So he just said he put out a record. I wanted to check it out. Matchbox 20. We do 3 a.m. in Spare Change, so I wanted to listen to Matchbox 20. And then going from Matchbox 20 to Hank Mobley. So I think I was like, trying to. I wasn't playing a lot of jazz gigs this past year, and I just wanted to keep up with my jazz chops. And while I was going out to the sessions and be prepared to jam with people and not forget about jazz. So since I've graduated college, looks like I listened to a couple of his albums, and then one with Donald Byrd, Lee Morgan, and then going from Hank Mobley to Ghost. This was their new album that they put out, and I enjoyed this. Skeleton. This was pretty good. Nice. It was more chill than I thought it was gonna be. So that surprised me listening to that. All right, moving on. And then we do a Zach Brown song in Spare Change called Whatever It Is. So I just wanted to listen to a couple more Zach Brown albums. Like prog country ish. Talking about musicians that have made it in the industry, just listening to these popular artists. So my playing can sound like these multi-million dollar records. Trying to get that influence in my own playing. Okay, this was the Joe D. Messina. We were learning a song of hers for a wedding later that month, and called "I Hope You Dance," and it's one of my favorite songs now. So being a musician, and being requested to play songs, I'll learn new music that I fall in love with, and that's just like one of my favorite things is just discovering music that I like. It kind of keeps me going, and it's one of those things that is for my mental health too, and reminding me of why I even do what I do, finding new music. That's one of it. So this was a really, um, I want to say, enlightening moment for me is like checking out Joe D. Messina and other women in country and just women artists in general. I had a professor in college that would really emphasize the importance of women musicians and how to keep the band, the guys in the band fed and their families fed. So Joe D. Messina, a couple of her albums that day. And then going from Joe D. Messina to Periphery. This was one of my favorite albums of the year. I actually hearted it. So I actually was not. Sometimes I just don't listen to live albums. I don't know why. But this was one of the best albums I've listened to all year. The Live in London album. Really impressed. Sister Hazel. We do a Sister Hazel All For You song, so I had to listen to that album. We also do 8675 3886. Yeah, that song by Tommy Two Tone. The Two album. I was like, what the heck kind of name is that? But so just listen to the whole album. Blink 182. What's that one song we do? We do that in Spare Change too. I'm blanking right now on what song, but listen to the whole Blink 182 album. We do what's that one song? Do that one Violent Femmes song. We do it in Spare Change. So I'm trying to think of it. I'm blanking on that one too. So anyway, I just listened. I don't want to get copyright if I sing the melody, so that's how I, you know. Anyway, that was one of those. KC and the Sunshine Band. We do Boogie Shoes. Man, that's gonna bother me now. I can't remember what song it is. I mean, I can sing it, but I don't want to, so I don't get copywritten on the channel. So John Mellencamp, we do Jack and Diane. James Taylor, we do How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You. So I listened to a couple James Taylor albums. Morgan Wallen, I'm the Problem. Okay, so this was a huge album. This took me like 2 days to actually listen to. You can see I had to finish it. I read it for the same day. I don't even, yeah, that's how I had to like listen to it in two different chunks. It was like a double album. So it was like a couple hours long. And some more Leonard Skinner. I think I was like on the road this day because I remember listening to this on the road. And some Leonard Skinner, Allman Bros, Jimi Hendrix, some classic rock. Oh, that's right. I think I had a Straight Wire gig that day. So not Spare Change, and I was on the road to Topsail. We had a gig at the Trailer Bar. That's the last time I played with them. So I was listening to classic rock on the way for that gig. A couple days later, listening to some John Party. A couple of his songs, the guys at the Buck do. And then checking out some Sublime, because I actually never really listened to much of Sublime either, trying to get more cultured to one of the most popular bands in history, American history. Another Leanne Womack. This is the I Hope You Dance album. Oh, Joe D. Messina. I got them mixed up. No, that was my fault. Okay. So Joe D. Messina, Heads Carolina, Tails California. Excuse me. Okay, I got those two women mixed up. That was my fault. So we were yeah we were still learning music for the wedding. So but we were learning Heads Carolina, Tails California. That one. Got those two mixed up. And yep, and then I was just like, okay, Leanne Womack is the queen. So I listened to a bunch of her albums, um, getting ready for that wedding. Some Eric Church. I started checking out. I need to actually check out more of Eric Church because I'm playing with Cooper Greer these next couple weeks, and Eric Church is one of his favorite artists. So it's good to listen to a favorite artist of a person that you're playing with that's leading the band. I think to kind of get a scope of their favorite music and their inspiration. So need to check out more Eric Church if I'm gonna be since I'm playing with him these next couple weeks. Um, Bob Carlisi Carl. Okay, I'm not even sure. Why am I so bad at like saying last names? So, Butterfly Kisses, I think was one of his songs. I was it randomly popped up in my head, so I just listened to the whole album. Another album of his, and then going to a jam. I remember going to a jam session in the Triangle area. I think it was on one of these days. I know my buddy Charlie Garnett. He loves Herbie Hancock. And he's still alive too. So I was like, okay, I should check out some more Herbie records. So the Jammin' with Herbie album, the Monster album, and then going from Herbie Hancock, and then Alice in Chains the next couple days. So the Black Gives Way to Blue, interesting album. This was like one of their first albums that they released since Lane Staley passed away. So like, I think it was like 2009 or something. I never listened to the album in high school because I was like, man, it's just not the same without, their old lead singer. But I actually enjoyed this album. All right, so here is something cool. Actually, I think talking about so Leanne Womack, I was like, and Jody Messina, listening to their discography, I was like, what? Who are some other influential women in country? So this is where actually Reba was the most listened to artist of my 2025, as you can see. So for a couple days straight, I actually only listened to Reba for the rest of June. And then I decided to listen to some Cedar Walton after that, because I was getting hit to Cedar Walton. The guys in the Triangle area like to play a couple of his songs. So I was like, I need to work on these Cedar Walton songs, as well as like what I'm doing with Spare Change. And honestly, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I was listening to Reba and some other women because we talk about or people talk about manifestation, and I might be trying to manifest a good country girl. So maybe I've been listening to country women to get a country girl of my own. Some more Reba. Yep, a bunch of Reba. Actually, this live album right here of Reba's. This was probably one of my favorite albums I've ever I listened to in 2025. I loved it. What I really liked about it was one part of it where she introduces the band. I really just felt like it was a good vibe on the stage, and everyone was just enjoying themselves. So that made me appreciate live albums more, and the Periphery album I mentioned earlier. So I was playing at a church, and told to listen to gospel music, or learning gospel music, gospel legends. Okay, Legally Blonde musical was a musical I played this past November at East Carolina, and so I listened to this album a couple months uh, prior to the gig. So the Legally Blonde musical, I listened to that uh, all the way in July, getting ready for November. So I actually ended up listening to this. So as you'll see later on in the video, trying to make it there. I'm already like 30, almost 35 minutes in. Dang, just talking about this. The Legally Blonde musical, I listened to a bunch when it came time. So you'll see a lot of gaps later on. Um, the Chieftains, Another Country and Joy Division is an album that I discovered just actually from watching YouTube videos, and I think they were talking about the album cover. It's like a Vsauce album, Joy Division. It was a Vsauce uh, video and talking about this album, so I was like, oh, I gotta check it out. Okay, and so I started checking out more Cedar Walton too. Looks like I listened to multiple albums that day. Whitney Houston, listened to a couple of her albums as well because we do a Whitney Houston song in Spare Change. Arc Spine, this is another one of those. Yeah, going from Whitney Houston to Arc Spine. I think this is one of those crazy metal bands with the triggers on the drums to make it sound like 64th notes or something in the bass drum, and just crazy speed metal, thrash, death, whatever you call it, black metal. Going back to Reba, so going from death metal to Reba, I just think it's really interesting, and I kind of I accept it, and I think it's makes me unique because I can play sensitively, and then I can rock out, so I can flip that switch. So yeah, more Reba, more Reba, more Reba. Yeah, all this stuff, all this Reba for the rest of this page. Moving on. All right, and then here's a guy on YouTube I see when I scroll, and he released this like metal album of his or EP. I thought it was pretty good. Going to Brooks and Dunn, I was like, okay, Brooks and Dunn, Friends in Low Places, and they're one of the classic country duos. And I was like, I need to listen to these guys more, and I really should be more often even now. So probably I'm gonna revisit Brooks and Dunn again. They do Red Dirt Road too. Bryan Adams, Black Sabbath. I think this was around when Ozzy died last year, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to some Black Sabbath. Um, okay, so we're at the end of July right here. So I was actually getting ready to go to the Mid Atlantic, not Mid Atlantic, not that one, the Rhode Island Newport Jazz Festival. At the beginning of this month, so I was listening to Jacob Collier because he was going to be an artist. I actually did not end up seeing him live because um, we had to clear out. That was one of the craziest experiences of 2025 was going to the Newport Jazz Festival. I'll probably go again, but it was packed. There was a lot of people there. It was kind of too many people there, honestly. And yep. So I remember listening to Jacob Collier before, and then on the train ride, I actually took a train, so I listened to some Jacob Collier coming back from, or maybe I was actually still there. I might have still been staying with my godfather in the Boston area. Um, Trivia, and then I started listening. I was like, okay, that was a lot of jazz this past week. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna listen to some Trivium. I know Jacob Collier is not jazz, but I listened to a bunch of jazz when I was at the festival. Trivium, a band I used to listen to in high school. So I listened to pretty much their whole discography. The Shogun album is the one I listened to in high school. That's when it came out when I was in an upperclassman in high school. So I just wanted to listen. I really liked The Court of the Dragon. I remember that album. The album cover is so cool looking, and it was actually one of my favorite albums I listened to. All this music was great, actually. I really like Trivium. I really like their music. McDonald Sisters, some more gospel music I was checking out. So going from Trivium to McDonald Sisters. Speeding Kills Bears is so a couple friends from middle school, high school, they have this band, and they just put out an EP. So I listened to that. So it looks like we're at the end of August. Black Crowes, another song we do in Spare Change. Yep, we do one of their songs in Spare Change as well. The Cedar Walton Composer album. This was one of those kind of like light bulb moments. I was like, oh wow, Cedar Walton, and Christian McBride and Roy Hargrove play on that album. It's just incredible. One of the greatest jazz albums of all time from the '90s, and I was really glad to discover this album. It's actually my most listened to album because I was learning a couple of the standards from it of 2025. This was my most listened to album. Hail the Sun, my friend that plays in Speeding Kills Bears, this is one of his favorite bands. So I think they just put something out, and Spotify told me, "Hey, check this out." So listen to some Hail the Sun, and also Dance Gavin Dance. I think this is their new album that they just put out, and I Dance Gavin Dance. My friend that plays in Speed and Kills Bears, he put me onto this, and they're one of my favorite bands now too. And I was really excited for. I don't, honestly, this was not one of my favorite album of theirs. I really didn't. It was like I listened to it like twice, and I was like, man, I don't like it actually. Cosmic Collective, actually a band I'm friends with the guys of this band and know some of them from college. So Cosmic Collective, they put out music all the time, and it's just great. Kind of like techno-y jazz. It's really interesting. And some Zach Top, his new album "Ain't in It for My Health." I listened to that, and that also was not one of my favorite albums either. I was like, this is, you know, to me, it just wasn't my favorite album. I remember thinking that when I listened to that, I was like, nothing really sounds like it doesn't really sound like it stuck out to me. All right, moving on. Yep. So we're in September, 40 minutes in. Mac DeMarco, a new album of his, and that was a pretty chill album. I think I remember listening to that like playing like Sudoku or something. A Workout Day, Miles Davis. Listened to like two of his albums that day. The that was excellent album. And then going back to his like one of his very first albums, I think from the 50s, when he was playing with the Lighthouse All Stars. CBD Ensemble. I studied with Mr. DeShiel in college, so wanted to revisit an album that he put out, and just this is some excellent music right here. In revisiting some music that I like, Bullet for My Valentine, Scream, Aim, and Fire. That album, I at least used to listen to a couple tracks from the album when I was in middle school. I love this time of my life, actually. I remember listening to this and just loving it. Hearts Burst Hearts Burst into Fire, one of my favorite songs of all time. It's beautiful. Alice in Chains. I've listened to Dirt before, but I just marked it, so I just revisited Alice in Chains that day. I think really Alice in Chains is one of the bands that got me into playing. Some more Miles Davis. I must have worked out that day. Kind of marks like when I work out. It's not work out enough, honestly. So Meshuggah. Oh yeah, this is when I started like I was like, okay, what's up with Meshuggah? Like what are people talking about? And it took me a couple of listen throughs. Like I like it. A lot of it to me sounds the same. I think it takes a couple listens to kind of know what's going on. And it's just like there's a lot going on, and I like it. I'll listen to Meshuggah, and so this was me kind of like stepping in. So I started listening to Meshuggah because Periphery is one of my favorite bands, and Misha Mansour, the front man of that band, the guy that writes most of the music and started the band pretty much. That's one of his favorite bands. So I was like, okay, one of my favorite bands. Should check out these guys. So that's why I checked them out, just to kind of get a feel of what the djent movement is all about. Coheed and Cambria, another one of my favorite bands. So I think they just put this record out earlier last year, and I really enjoyed it actually. And it was like another album of theirs that I didn't listen to that they released that I wasn't aware of that they released. So I listened to two albums that night. Revisiting Nine Inch Nails, one of my favorite bands. I never listened to the Pretty Hate Machine album. That was their first album. So revisited that, or really listened to it. And then revisited With Teeth, I think one of my favorite albums of theirs too. Just so many great singles. Pantera, just seeing clips on YouTube of Dimebag Darrell playing, just insane. His playing was so melodic, and it's such a tragedy what happened. Volumes, it's kind of like a genty band that my friend Joel got me into. That was a great album. I really like that album. There's another album that was released later of theirs that I wasn't actually crazy about. Everything Yes, Volume 2.5. So these are friends of mine from college, and they formed a band, and they're doing it. And so this was their newest release, Volume 2.5. I really like how they did the Volume 2.5 and not Volume 3. I think that was really good marketing from my friend Zach. I think my friend Zach is just incredible musician, incredible person, really thoughtful, and he's a really sensitive guy. You know, if you and I really think that's what it takes to be like a good musician is sensitivity. Um, and what you do off the bandstand really makes a difference. So, and Zach is ripped, and he's world famous now, and I'm really proud of my friends for they're gonna be in the jazz history textbooks, no doubt. I think they're playing with like their agents for booking shows are the same guys that book Snarky Puppy, basically. So they're like on that circuit with Snarky Puppy, and that's incredible. Guys I went to college with are playing shows with like Adam Neely, um, and Zach actually he was playing with Gretchen Parlato too. So it's just like he knows everyone now. All right, Bill Withers. So we did a Bill Withers song in Spare Change that we had to learn, and the drummer was like, Bill Withers is my jam. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put this whole album out on so that way I can lock in with the drummer more. So this was, for me to lock in with the drummer more. Carpenters. All right, this is some of my favorite music of all time, I think. So I've discovered the Carpenters from going to this place in uh where is it? What's it called? Oak City here in North Carolina. There's a studio out there called the Music Box Studio, run by Etheridge. I've been trying to get up with Ted, but I can't. Been trying, but he loves the Carpenters and has like all this Carpenter stuff at his studio. I remember seeing when I was there working on some stuff a couple years ago. So I was like, "What's up with the Carpenters?" And really easygoing music. I loved it. I loved it so much. I think this day in particular, I was with the guys in Spare Change, and we were driving to um, West Jefferson. It was like, so it's like a 4.5 hour car drive. I'm like, let's put on, yeah, that's right. There was a bunch of music we played that day. So I listened to two albums of the Carpenters, and they were like, I've had enough Carpenters. And so then I put on Tracy Byrd, one of Jordan's favorite artists, and some Gautier, not Gotti, it's Gautier, that famous album of theirs, Making Mirrors. And then I guess another listen through of the Legally Blonde musical a couple days later to kind of get ready for. I think we had our first rehearsal. I was like, I need to shed on this stuff seriously. All right, moving on. So more Miles. It looks like I listened to a good amount of Miles Davis that day. Alan Parsons Project. To be honest with you, I don't really remember sometimes I just don't remember, but I wrote it down. More Miles Davis. I must have worked out or something that day, or I don't even know. Jacob Collier, his new album came out earlier this year. I really enjoyed this album, the Light for Days album. All right, and then so it looks like I took like a week break. Sometimes I'll take like a couple days off from listening to music, or that I just didn't write down like the full. These are all the full albums I've listened to, but I'll listen to singles, especially of songs that I'm working on with my band that I play in. So, Sublime, talking about Sublime again, and really enjoyed the both of these albums. I think the self-titled album is my favorite album of theirs. The one that their third album, the one that was released after Bradley passed away, unfortunately. That's so tragic too. Neil Diamond wanted to, we do Sweet Caroline and Spare Change, so I wanted to just check out that whole record. Just pretty chill, more Sublime. When I was listening to it, I was like, why are they like repeating all these songs that I've heard? So, but it's cool. The live album, that was another, just again like live albums. I've been underrating them, I think, my whole life. This was another one of my favorite albums right here. Stand by Your Van, Cake, Fashion Nugget. I remember, and when I was as I was listening to this, I was like, I I remember putting this on in high school, and so all the songs I revisited. Okay, Butthole Surfers. I don't know what made me really want to listen to Butthole Surfers, but it was like recommended, I guess, by Spotify, and it was like, "What's up with the Butthole Surfers?" I really did not like this album. Okay, not a big fan of the Butthole Surfers. Not gonna lie. Okay, and I was like, okay, what's up with Sabrina Carpenter? People are listening to her, talking about her. One of the biggest women in pop music right now. So just wanted to listen to a couple of her albums, and I did. And I didn't really, I'm not really crazy about it. I get why people like it. It's kind of edgy, like especially like the way she like, you know, drops curse words and talks about like sexually related subjects, and I guess that's what keeps people listening to it. But for me, it was just like um, didn't really sound anything too original. I was like, all right, like it's just kind of like crappy pop music. That's what I thought. That there's better music than Sabrina Carpenter, but I can see the appeal, and just wanted to see what the hype's about. Um, it looks like I re-listened to Everything Yes that day, and then so I was like, okay, I listened to all the Sublime records, so let me check out the period when they did Sublime with Rome. I actually need to listen to more. I did enjoy this album, the Yours Truly album. I think it was like their first one that they released together. So I was thinking about checking out more Sublime with Rome just to kind of get a feel of what that period was looking like for them. Some more Sabrina Carpenter again. Not crazy about Sabrina Carpenter, but she's beautiful. Okay, cool. All right, so so I was working on helping someone with some farmland and with their property. So I had like a Bluetooth speaker clipped onto me, and so here I'm about to show you some honky tonk I checked out seriously. Um, had to listen to some Bud Powell just because um, all the piano players that jazz piano players that I've ever met will talk about Bud Powell being one of their favorite pianists. So I was like, what's the hype about? And like, why haven't I been like checking him out? So Bud Powell, the amazing Bud Powell, I think his most famous record. Okay, so looks like I listened to like a bunch of Merle Haggard, one of the greatest country singer songwriters in history. So I listened to like pretty much everything from the '60s to the '70s, and I'm gonna start back up listening to him shortly, starting out at the '80s. So all these albums I listened to that one day, just like working and just like throwing them on. And then I was like thinking to myself too, like a lot of these songs sound similar. So I was just able to kind of put it on as background music. But I mean, I was listening to it, and the Okie from Muskogee, another live album. Um, I really like this one too. And then Credence, we do a song. Have you ever seen the rain? Just wanted to listen to that album. Some Rick Springfield. I think we do one of the like both. We do one of those songs in Spare Change as well as Kelly Clarkson. Uh, what's that one song? It's off that album Breakaway. Um, and great song too. It's actually really enjoyed listening to the Breakaway album. I didn't listen to it in the early 2000s because I was like a kid. I was like, I'm not listening to like girl music, but now I appreciate stuff like this more. All right, moving on towards the end of the year. It's our last page. So Eric Clapton, I was like, Eric Clapton just put out a new record. Spotify recommended to me. So a lot of it was like some of this music I listened to was like recommended to me from Spotify. I was like, okay, I should be aware of Eric Clapton and his new stuff, and like what are these like old guys doing now? And his new album, I was blown away. I was like, this sounds like classic rock. It was just like it was spot on. And I listened to Slow Hand, and that was a long album. The deluxe edition was long, but I was like, I've never listened to the Slow Hand album, so let me check that out. Also, the Fleetwood Mac Rumors, their famous album, Boston, their self-titled album. This was one of my favorite records too, right here. It was unfortunate what happened with this band. Prince hasn't like Miles Davis has an endless discography. I was like, I should really be checking out Prince because a lot of like musicians rave about him. So I was like, okay, be more aware of what Prince is doing or has done. So I need to check out more Prince. Again, revisiting Bud Powell. I think I was driving that day. Radiohead. OK Computer, an album I used to listen to growing up, but never really paid attention to it much. I liked this album. I thought it was pretty good. Zach Brown Band's new album, Love and Fear, it came out last year. I enjoyed that as well. I just want to see what's new and if it's, good. And a lot of this, and it kind of gives me hope when you hear something new and that you like. So sometimes I get caught up in like the stuff that I like to listen to, but I'm trying to be more aware of other things too and discovering new music. And I'm glad that I set out to do it because I've discovered a lot of music this past year and continue to do so. I think I wrote it again, the Speeding Kills Bears EP. It's another repeat. The new Volumes record, Mirror Touch. Okay, like I said earlier, if you've been watching, I really actually didn't care for this album. I thought all the songs kind of sounded the same. Anomaly. This was like a hip hop record I was listening to with Joel on the way back from a gig. We were in the truck together, so he showed me this, and I enjoyed it actually. And then I had to throw on the Tarzan soundtrack just because I was feeling nostalgic and wanted to listen to some Phil Collins. So listened to a couple songs off of that, and then closed the year out with some Supertramp. Really enjoyed these two albums actually, Breakfast in America and Crime of the Century. I didn't know what I was in for, but I'm glad I did listen to them. And then had to check out some Neil Young just to see what he's about too, another famous singer-songwriter. And then the last album I listened to of the year was Beyonce's B-Day album when I was in middle school. I remember like all those singles and a couple of her songs I really enjoy actually. So yeah, this was a very good year of listening to music. So going back real quick from the mid-November-ish, and then this was after the musical, the Legally Blonde musical, so I was listening to a lot of Legally Blonde that week as well, that musical, so I wasn't listening to anything else but that for that week. So yeah, this was my 2025 my album listening. It's about 280 albums, a little over that. I counted it. And I really got a lot out of listening to different varieties of music that I wasn't familiar with and music that I was familiar with, like revisiting stuff that I enjoy listening to. Also, checking out music that other people enjoy and wanting to see what it's about. So anyway, that was my album listening run through of 2025. All right. Y'all have a great 2026. See you later.